Our listeners, they know that is the intro we use when we've got Daryl Skiles here from South Central Regional Stockyards. Daryl, I have no idea where I'm set on these sound levels, but I think we're right.
We'll see here pretty soon, won't we, Bob? As Bob's sitting here playing with the dials, he's turning the knobs, he's trying to get the sound right. Hope you all can hear
they can hear you now.
So, good morning, Bob.
Good morning. How are you, Daryl?
In the Ozarks.
It is. It sure is.
A beautiful December morning. Christmas fast approaching, the new year, and I can't believe we're about ready to start a new year.
Isn't that the truth?
It's just I don't know where 2023's gone, but that's okay. It's been a good year, and in the cattle market, and we'll talk about this a little bit. It's been an interesting fall here in the cattle markets.
That's an understatement almost.
I think you and I were doing the program the last time
we were,
and we talked about, and I mentioned that the futures, feeder cattle futures and prices have been tumultuous. I think the word you used was volatile.
Yep.
I think that was probably a better description of the feeder futures.
It's been both. It's been all that and above.
And there were some things came out. They had higher placements of cattle on feed here back in the late summer and into the fall. A lot of that probably driven because of drought and some conditions and things. They've also kind of slowed down, from what I understand, the change speed on the packing plants, and the fact the people feeding the cattle have been holding them longer, and I hear we pretty much have record weights of cattle coming off. So there's a lot of different factors that have come into play. Working.
Okay. I've got him about as hot as I can get him, but we'll try to get him a little.
Trying to get the microphones. Hope you all can hear. Is that any better? We're working on it. All right.
Well,
I'll just try to. I don't want to yell, but we'll do what we have to, Bob. Okay.
Just keep me posted, Ben.
We got a fellow here monitoring things, letting us know. So at any rate, feeder futures have been down, and it's been an interesting fall. Things aren't really where we thought they'd be. We were sitting back here with feeder futures back in the summer here at 250, better and higher. I think yesterday they finished the day down around 210. But it's been such a wild roller coaster, and I know you watch it. You've seen it too, Bob, right?
Yeah, for a month now, we've been talking about the fact that it's, what day do you sell? Ben, where are we? Doing okay now?
Well, I can hear you just fine, Bob, but when I'm watching the monitor here, I just don't see him coming up as much.
Well, my goodness, what have I done wrong this morning?
Well, if you can hear Bob, he's the smart one in the room.
No. Well, we got her cranked to where...
We'll see. We'll see how it works.
He moved a little farther,
we'll do
but
what we can with what
okay.
we have to work with.
We're getting there.
I figure if anything, maybe just bring you over here and put that mic between you.
Well,
if you could.
We're thinking about changing places here, so let's see how this goes. Is it any better? Are we not?
Just
stay
stay right up to it, Daryl. And I don't know what's different about today than 2 weeks ago.
Technology is a wonderful thing when it works. We'll see what's happening here. Is there anything? Is that any better?
Well, it helps. It helps if you use the right dials.
Yeah. Okay. Are we back? Are we in better business now? All right.
Probably.
There we go. You get a whole room full of technical experts, and heaven knows what'll happen. Yeah.
Well, I grabbed the wrong button there, and
there's a lot of buttons and a lot of dials.
My gosh, the choices are.
Yeah,
there's lots of choices.
So we were talking about the futures market. The futures market back earlier in the summer was up there on feeder futures around 250. Of course, we were looking at fat cattle trading up in $1.80, 85, approaching $1.90. Everybody thought fat cattle were going to be bringing $2 a pound, and these feeder cattle were going to be bringing $2.75, and so forth and so on. And optimism was breeding optimism and so forth. Well, then things kind of took a sideways turn. And there was some concern, though, that maybe this price thing was getting just a little bit overcooked, and could the economy really sustain it, and so forth and so on. The packers have kind of course, they're always looking to make all they can, like everybody does.
Sure.
So they played with the thing some. They slowed down the chain speeds. The fat cattle are coming out at record weights now, which is adding tonnage, wasn't. But I was reading here just in the last.
And
few
I
days.
think you talk about that, but we might mention that we're talking about. I think if I read and remember correctly, 24 pounds above the average and above the previous record carcass weights, and it doesn't sound like much.
But you multiply it out.
Take 50,000, 100,000 head slaughter, and it's a lot of pounds
It's a lot of
being
beef.
added to the market. And, the old supply and demand philosophy,
Uh-huh.
it's not philosophy, it's fact. You have excessive supply, the demand tends to diminish. When you're short supply, the
Well-
demand's up there, and we're in kind of that coming in as part of this, plus you bring in all the other whatever factors, for lack of a better. You mentioned
Lots
the
of
Packers. Yeah, they still control this thing.
They work very hard to control it,
Yep.
and they're going to make their money one way or the other.
Yep.
And then we just have to get along with what comes down the pipe. Another thing that's happened then as these prices went up, I've just read in the last couple of days, the export. Exports are a major part of our business.
Sure are.
Exports were down. Let's see, where was I at here? I think I thought I had that wrote down. Maybe not. But exports, beef exports are down sharply. Especially October was down very sharply from October of last year. But year to date, we're down about exports were down about 20%. Exports year to date this year totaled about 2.5 billion pounds. Year to date last year, though, was 3 billion, just right on 3 billion. So all those things, they factor together. So this thing is ratcheted backwards. Now, with all that said, we've had some really, really good sales at South Central, and in spite, this feeder market, the futures thing, and Bob, I know you've watched it. And a couple of weeks ago, the thing was down like $7-8 a hundred on Friday. It was down again another $5-7 a hundred on Monday, again on Tuesday, and this was the week following Thanksgiving, and frankly we were just worried, where was this thing headed? Most of the markets across the state, it was pretty tough. Some of the markets, and I've got the reports here we can see, and I'm not going to name the markets because it's just the luck of where they were at and how things worked on marketing that week and quality cattle and so on. But most of those markets across the state were down for that particular week. 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Some of them reported they were down $8 to $17 a hundred.
Wow.
To their previous sales for comparison wise. We were very fortunate for that particular sale. We were steady on cattle, 500 or steers 550 or 600 pounds and under. We were about steady to actually about $3 or $4 higher. Now in those bigger cattle, again, closer to those weights of where they'd be going in the lots, closer to coming out with these lower fat cattle prices, they would have been a couple of $3 or $5, $6 lower. But even so, we had just had an outstanding sale. That was a week ago Wednesday. Had about 1,800 head. We had about 1,800 head this past week again. And again, really, we had a good sale. South Central Stockyards, we're very fortunate that we're in an area where so many producers have just really been doing an outstanding job with their genetics, their health, their quality. And I hear buyers talk about it, that they love coming to the sale and seeing string after string, even if they're small groups, even if it's a 20-head group or 25, that these cattle have weaned, got a health program behind them, and they get their good genetic package. But and I'll be honest, I went ahead, I sold mine there that week following Thanksgiving, and I was really hesitant with what was going on with the futures.
Right.
But I looked at it, and here's what I kind of took a look at. A year ago, I sold all my calves off the same cows, weaned, all the health program, pretty much same genetics, very similar calves, weight-wise, everything. And they brought about $1,050 a head is what it came back to when they sold a year ago. And I was quite happy with that. Things were looking pretty good. So I figured even if they backed off $10 or $15, $20 a hundred, they're still going to bring probably $1,300 a head or more. We had an excellent sale, and them calves brought over $1,450, right at $1,450 a head.
And you say, way to go, Daryl, good choice.
Well, but I mean, that was reflective of what we just had an excellent sale.
Sure.
We had lot after lot of really good quality cattle. Again, this week it was the same way, and we sold some cattle. And I talked to a guy that he sold some calves this week, and he generally sells a big bunch of cattle once a year. And he said, I know the market's soft, but he said, I've never sold $1,500 a head steers.
Right.
Never in my life. And he said, he said this thing is just the way it goes, and was quite happy with. And just for folks to we'll just get into some prices, if that's all right, Bob.
Sure.
Just for this week. Now, this week we were cheaper than what we were the week before, but like I say, the week before, I think we just got along like such gangbusters. We knew we was going to have a hard time remaining comparing it, but compared to the Wednesday before, we were probably $4, $5, $6 a hundred cheaper, and heifers heifers are, if the steers are cheaper, the heifers will be a little cheaper, and the slaughter cow market's backed off a little bit from what it was. And I think a lot of that's too on the slaughter cow thing is kind of reflecting a little bit these extra slaughter weights just on the fats coming out and just that extra supply of beef that's out there. So, but at any rate, but we're still looking at some awfully good prices. We sold some 475-pound steers, Bob, at $3 a pound. Now those were value added. And by value added, we've talked about that. Those are calves that have been weaned for at least 30, 45, or 60 days. And they've had a full health vaccination program behind them. They're good genetics. And again, now they were light, 475 pounds and that was $3 a pound, $1,425 a head. Now that compares with some that were very similar weights, 480 pounders, very similar cattle, but they were unweaned, no shots, no nothing, just yanked off the cow and hauled to town. And this guy, I suspect, was probably happy at $1,272 a head. But $1,272 a head versus $1,425 a head, that's a pretty nice chunk of change.
It is. It's definitely made the extra effort and time did pay off.
Yep. That was a pretty small sample size as far as the number of cattle. Really getting into the bulk of the cattle we had, we would have been lots and lots of these 5, 6, and 7 weight kind of cattle. And just to give you some ideas, we had some 590-pound calves, unweaned, bringing $2.31 a pound. That's still a heck of a price. If you go back and compare a year ago, I mean, we can sit here and cry the blues over what futures has done and how much the cattle market's balked off, but you really haven't lost anything you never had. You can talk about the higher prices, but that really wasn't money you had sitting in the bank. It's what you were looking at and hoping you were going to get, maybe.
Well, we knew, history tells us, and we knew realistically there was going to have to be an adjustment. And this adjustment probably will wind up being healthy for the beef cattle industry in the long run.
It's slowing down expansion.
It'll slow down the expansion. If we continue in this drought, expansion is definitely going to slow down.
It has.
And so the big question will become, what will those replacements as people, if we start getting some rainfall? Of course, the grain prices have kind of helped us out a little bit on that side, but still, if we don't have forage to put in these beef cattle, there's not going to be an opportunity to really expand the beef cattle herd, the mother cows that need to be out there to produce these calves to go to market, be finished out and be slaughtered. So in the long run, maybe this is kind of that, what is it, silver lining to the cloud that
it's probably a blessing in disguise that we kind of pulled the gun.
Because we could have just kept going a little higher and a little harder and totally busted the bubble, so to speak. Well, maybe this will keep us from approaching that
at some point
burst bubble.
It might keep the crash. It might keep the crash from happening till farther out and make it not quite as hard when it does. There's not a lot of expansion. People looking for expansion in our part of the country, as you know. It's just dry
they're not
all across.
But you go to a bred heifer sale, and of course we haven't had one lately, and so it'll be interesting to see when we get to the next round of bred heifer sales what those look like. But the ones this fall have been very, very advantageous to the producers.
Well, and I will say, though, there is some demand for on the replacement heifer end of it. We've been selling a lot of the better quality bred cows when they show up on some cattle to go into Kansas. Those people actually got back into some moisture in a better situation, people that had liquidated their cows. And so they went ahead and jumped in, figured that these prices, Yao and Peters, are a little softer, but they kind of looking at the long term and some young cows that would be around and easily sell 4, 5, or 6 or 7 calves off of them. And where they turn them, there's some good producing cows out there that we've been able to send there. They had some interest from the North Country of Iowa area and some of those. So, but in our part of the country, and really all across big cow-calf parts of the country, there's just people are just wanting to get through this winter and hopefully get through with the hay supply they got, and let's see what happens. So, yeah, it's the replacement as far as on the thing, it isn't quite as good as it was, but it's pretty good still, and especially if they're really good quality. And that's the thing, you know what? In the end, it doesn't cost much more to raise quality than it does to raise that was a little less, and
it really doesn't. It really doesn't.
Just pay. Getting on into some more on these some of these prices here this past week. And by the way, I want to mention at South Central Stockyards, we will be having another special feeder calf, a yearling special this coming week. we are looking for a good run. We're looking for another 14, 15, 16, 1,700 head of cattle that are consigned that people are going to sell, and I look for it to be a good sale. There's got a lot of good strings of good cattle, and that will buy buyers. You know, there's a wide spread really between what this futures price is and what these cash prices are. It's at some point they'll have to diverge that thing and meet, but for right now we're very lucky we're getting along. This past week, again on these feeders, just for an example, okay, we had several head of old cattle. The weight averaged 618 pounds. These were value-added cattle, and they sold in a range of $2.42 to $2.58 a pound. The average on those cattle weighed 618. Of these value-added cattle in that weight, $2.49 a pound. That's $1,538 a head. And I think a gentleman I was talking to sold some cattle in that deal, was saying he had never sold $1,500 steers, and quite happy with things was.
Sure.
But that compares, those were 618-pound cattle. You can look here at the market report at 620-pound cattle, unweaned, $2.23 a pound. Well, a year ago, that would have been something to just absolutely turn foot apart.
Yeah.
Would be happy. That's $1,382 a head. But versus those similar cattle that have been weaned, a health vaccination deal at $1,538 a head. That's again, that's a pretty good chunk, about $150 a head.
You mentioned that upcoming sale. Looking at the calendar right behind your head, do you kind of figure with where Christmas is positioned this year in the calendar that this is probably getting close to the last really good sale
to put some calves on?
It really will
We'll have
be.
a sale the 20th, but it'll be kind of a cleanup sale.
It will be.
It will probably not a bad sale to run some old cull cows. If you've got some old cull cows sitting out there that you want to rid of, lots of times there'll be a little bump up in the cow price just because they're needing some cows to get through the holiday period, and they kind of stack them up. But otherwise, it'll just be kind of a cleanup deal, and I look for it to be a fairly quick sale, and the Christmas party will be on. But anyway, we'll have a sale, and there'll be people there buying.
Sure,
Sometimes,
there will be.
Those guys that are there buying. Sometimes they're just needing some to finish up some lots and load some things, and it'd be fun.
They'll all
If I was-
sell, that's
if I was
for
going
sure.
to sell, if I had a group I was interested in selling, and we've got some folks I got to get squared away to get some cattle up there this week, of some good cattle, and this would be the one I'd look at,
Yep.
or I'd probably be looking at after the first of the year. And then, but after this, let's see, we have this sale coming up. What is that? The 13th.
13th,
You can see
yes,
it,
sir.
And then it'll be the 20th. Will be our last.
Yes.
After that, it'll be 2 weeks that we don't have sales. We're going
Right.
to have a sale
None on the
week of Christmas,
27th, obviously,
and
right after
none on
Christmas.
The week after New Year's, we'll get cranked back up around probably the 10th or so for a second.
So you'll have a 2-week period
Yeah,
there
we'll
with
have
no
2
sale.
weeks without a
Yeah.
sale.
Well, there'll be
So-
a little bit of a backlog of people saying, I need to move some cattle.
I expect January 10th will be a pretty good size
Yep.
sale. Yeah.
So those will be the two that you might want to put your bullseye around. That
There you go.
if you want to move your calves, well,
Yep.
highly consider the 13th or going clear to the whatever that date was in January, second Wednesday in January.
Yep. I think it's January the 10th. It'll be the first.
Sounds
sale.
about right. Yeah.
Well, January 1st is on a Monday, which means Tuesday is the 2nd, Wednesday's the 3rd, 7 days later will be the 10th, okay? That's the way I always have to do it, going back to my grade school, grade school math and learning.
It works.
Anyway. So, but anyway, that gives you an idea of where we're at. And again, you get into some of these heavier weight cattle. Sold some awful nice 712-pound cattle, at $221 a pound. That's $1,573 a head right there. But that's pretty good. But I'm looking down here. We had some 715-pound cattle though. Then they're at $227 value added. Well, that's $1,623 a head. So it's still an extra $50 just on those 7-weight cattle to get the health. So.
And keep in mind out there, folks that are listening, these are prices Daryl's quoting per pound are on steers.
This is on the steers.
Yeah,
Yep.
we haven't gotten any heifer prices yet, and heifers are going to be a little lower, but
Always are.
those steers are, if you want to look at it just as a ballpark, that basically what Daryl has mentioned this morning has been $1,400 to $1,600 per head. And again, it
For sure,
depends on how they've been taken care of, the weaning, the vaccination protocol that the producers followed. Those all factor into whether we're going to be at the upper end of that scale or at the lower end of that scale.
These are from the market USDA, Missouri Department of Ag Market News Reporter, and this is for the medium and large number one muscle calves.
Yes.
Your better front end kind of cattle, top end. But even going, like I said down here, these 590-pound unweaned calves, they were still $1,300 a head, $1,360 a head or so.
Almost to that $1,500 mark, or
Yeah,
14,
so-
excuse me.
So yeah, it's all, we can cry the blues over the future sliding back and this and that, but let's go back and look at where we were a year ago.
Oh.
And I think if you could be guaranteed that you'd get $1,400 a head for your steers, for the next 7 years, I think a lot of people would sign that paper and say, "I'll take that."
Oh, yeah.
and plan accordingly.
Yeah,
we'll
we
see.
are on.
No, I believe it'll be there though. Honestly,
It may be. The cattle market is totally different than the cattle market of 20 years ago. That's one of the really interesting and somewhat perplexing things. And why is that? Is it because of population? Is it because of promotion, that the beef cattle industry has done a better job of promoting their product? I really don't know, but I know years ago, go back 20 years or more, and we had to go through the cattle cycle, which is, there was always a valley to it, and there was always a mountaintop to it, and it just kept cycling through. And right now, we're still in the longest uphill grade of that cattle cycle that we've ever been in.
right.
So it's going to be,
And numbers wise, and all the key numbers out there tell us that it's really, even with this little bump down or little dip down, the numbers tell us we're going to be in a good position here for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Just because of the numbers, period.
Absolutely.
Barring something.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of
train wreck
factors,
that
and
nobody
there's
can
always,
control,
I can't remember the term that a lot of the markets use, but is it the black swan?
The black swan, yeah.
Yeah, something that's not even related to the cattle industry happens, and it does affect the cattle industry
You just yank the
or
price up.
the hog industry or whatever industry you're thinking about. The black swan can always swoop in and affect those different entities.
Yeah.
We're not saying there's going to be one, but
Well, some people have been asking, what's the black swan that's caused this thing right now to ratchet backwards. But I still say,
it's a minor. This is a basically minor correction compared to both sides of it, where we were and where we are and where we're going to get to.
But in the end, still, if you're raising quality stuff, doing a good job, and stuff, the buyers see that, they recognize it, and that's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for the people they're buying for.
Mm-hmm.
The people think that buyer's sitting there. Almost none of those people sitting there buying those cattle are taking ownership of those cattle. They're buying them.
Yeah.
That's what their job is to buy for a large feedlot, or to take out the wheat pastures, or to take the blue stem pastures and so on and so. But their job is to scrutinize and say, now we've had a number, and I don't remember. I didn't get the numbers this week. How many I know in the sale on the in past weeks, we'll have a number buyers, and this is even different than even what it was 20 years ago, Bob. At South Central Stockyards, we're connected and a member of the DV auction company, and we'll have a number of people on live watching the sale on DV auction, and either going ahead and buying direct, or sometimes they'll watch and they'll go ahead and contact a buyer when they learn how many cattle there are of different weights, sizes, and some things, and get some information on health and genetics of the cattle that are there, and they'll let a buyer that's sitting there in the seats give them an order and have them buy for them. But it again be through the internet site that they can do that, and it's that's changed so much from what it was. But some of them just sit there and just buy them. Now, but I'll say, sometimes somebody will be unhappy that, we sold their cattle, and we pulled this calf off, or we pulled this calf off, or something. And it happens. But I'm going to tell you, if you're going to sell them cattle, and those people are sitting there watching on the internet, they've got to know and trust and feel that you're not going to slip a Mickey in on them. You're not going to slip one in on the deal. And the fact is, when they send them on, And if there's one on there, a cripple, or a bad eye, or whatever it is, that animal's all to get pulled off and sent to a local sale barn wherever it went, and it'd just be shorted on that deal. So I mean, there's ways around it, but they'd just rather feel pretty good about the animals they see coming in the ring are sure enough repped accordingly, and they're going to be treated. And they also want to know that they're going to be treated well after they leave the ring, until they get on the trailers, can get to their destination. And I've heard people talk about they really like the way we can handle the cattle and take care of them if they do have to sit for a few hours, or sometimes the next day or afternoon. So it all works together, and South Central Stockyards, we're real proud to be able to have buyers and sellers that are happy with how we handle things, and that's the goal. So anyway. But you mentioned heifers. The heifers in this thing are always going to be back $10, $15, $20 behind. But even on this heifer thing, let's take a look here. We're talking about here a pretty good group, 400. This week's sale, 490-pound heifers bringing $2.50 a pound. That's you go back and compare that to a year ago, and you just would have been.
Oh, you just say you're in hog heaven.
Crazy. Now, compared to a couple of months ago, yeah, it's back, but we're not going to go there. This is where we're at. So. Sometimes, if you keep looking back too much, you'll get run over. 430 pounders at $2.55. And that compares those to some, these were value added, both of those that I just quoted, for some 430 pounders at $2.55. But here's some 440 pounders unweaned, $2.39. So right there, what are we talking about? 16 cents a pound.
Yeah.
Difference. Right there on those weights. You get on down here those are kind of some lightweights, but you get on down here is kind of some cattle like that you and I would have, Bob, closer weight wise anyway. Some 580-pound heifers at $2.26. Those are value added, and still a pretty good price. 573 pounders, still very close in weight, $2.12 a pound, unweaned.
Mm-hmm.
No health, no vaccine, no, just $2.12. Now, again, a year ago, a guy would have been pretty tickled to get $2.12 a pound for a 570-pound calf and go to the barn and pick up his check. Had some awfully good replacement heifers this week, awfully good 635 pounders at $2.22. So that kind of gives you an idea there. So even in spite and in light of what's going on as far as the futures and the things backing up stuff, we're just still in a pretty good position here going into the new year. I think we'll have an awful good sale. Well, let's go ahead and talk about cows. These will slaughter cows. They're off a little bit, but even so, you're still talking about these average and high-dressing big cows bringing in the mid-80s up to the mid-90s a pound. That's a lot of dollars for some of them big old cows.
It is.
Talking 95 cents a pound for a 15, 16, 1,700-pound cow. If you get on down into the kind of the low dressing cows, you're going to get down in 60 to 70 bucks, or down in the 80s for some average dressing cows weighing. We had quite a bunch of cows here weighing around 1,000 to 1,100 pounds, bringing 78 to 86, 88 bucks, 88 cents a pound. So, that's still not bad. If you can get $800, $900, $1,000 out of an old weigh cow, why, it's the time of year a lot of cows getting pregged, and the open cows go to town.
Mm-hmm.
Slaughter bulls, same way. They're off a little bit, but you're still looking at somewhere on those bigger high-dressing bulls in the mid-90s up to $1, $1.03, $4, $5 a pound. On that. So gives folks an idea. So anyway, that's kind of where it's at. We are looking, as I said, we're looking at another special coming up this week at South Central Regional Stockyards on Wednesday. Then we'll have one more sale before Christmas on the 20th. And then, as we talked about, then the next sale after the first of the year will be on January the 10th. And we'll have a feeder calving yearling special on that date.
Okay.
So
those are the dates to look at.
If anybody was interested in thinking about moving some cattle, you want some more information, you can always call the barn at 573-422-3305. Ask for Dave, Ross, or Bill Patton. If you don't get anybody, why you can leave a message, but or you can give me a call. I'm right here at Salem-Dent County, and I get around all over the place. Give me a call at 573-308-5415. And if I don't answer, I will get back to you. Leave a message, leave me your number, and the information, what it is you need. Or if you just need some help getting some trucking lined up, we got several cattle we got to get up there next week, Monday and Tuesday, for the sale on Wednesday. And Looking for a good sale. Like I say, I think we're looking for anyway probably 14, 15, 1,600 head or better.
Sounds like a good
and
sale.
That's,
Yeah.
Yep, real good. So, sound like, and the weather's cooperating though. We haven't really had any bad weather issues other than dry, but at least we haven't had any. A lot of times this time of year you can run into about anything.
Yeah, we've had ice storms by this time of year. We've had snow 6-8 inches deep by this time of year right now. Hey, we had a little snow forecasted. Waited a couple of days. They took it out of the forecast.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
Now the little bit of rain that was forecasted, it's been reducing to down to less than 1/10 of an inch for tonight. So it's just going to kind of wet down the grass a little bit.
Here a week or two ago, they was calling for good rain, and all weekend we got almost a 1/10, not quite a 1/10. I couldn't hardly.
It's all the weatherman or weatherwoman's fault. They just keep storying to us. And no, those folks do the best they can with what they've got to work with, but Mother Nature still rules. And so much of this moisture has been going across the northern part of the United States and missing the Midwest and the southern tier. So we just have to wait and see what nature decides to do.
Yep, that's right.
Darryl?
Whatever it does, we'll be at South Central Regional Stockyards at Vienna. And we do have a lot of pens inside, good water pens, feed pens. We can take care of your cattle. Love to help you in any way. If you just need some information, like I said, give a call. The barn number, 573-422-3305. Or give me a call at 573-308-5415. And we'll get back to you.
Okay. Speaking of back to you, when will you be back?
I will be back here on the 22nd.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll be back
on
Friday
before Christmas.
Tell you about those updates from that good sale on the 13th, and still talk about what's going to come up there in January 10th.
May have a special guest on with me to kind of look ahead a little bit to what's going to maybe happen in the legislature this next session, and the good, the bad, and the skinny on that, and what we might expect, and see if there's anything shaking and baking, and give a little input here and there where we can.
Okay.
So I always like to have those folks on.
Well, that's been your South Central Regional Stockyards Report with Darryl Skiles. Darryl, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Glad to be here. Appreciate everybody listening. And until we're back here then on the 22nd from South Central Regional Stockyards, I do hope everyone will be safe, happy, healthy, and God bless each and every one.
And Darryl, we do thank